Mhm. Here we go.
All right. Recording for the 4th of March, unless
Mhm.
you're going to watch this on YouTube, in which case you'll be getting it earlier than that.
Mhm.
And our podcast for today, we're going to do some admin and we're going to talk about getting chewed out in public. This is a Manager Tools podcast. And here we go. Welcome to Manager Tools. Today, getting chewed out in public. Thanks, y'all. That's it for this week. We'll see you back here next week with a new topic. The questions this cast answers are: what do I do when I get chewed out in public? Should I respond to a public dressing down? What do I do when my boss is unprofessional?
All right. I'm really excited about this cast.
Yeah.
The moment I read it, it actually it reminds me of recently talking to an executive, Mark Thomas. I think you know Mark Thomas,
I do.
um, to whom this happened. And
Oh,
he was like, what do I even do? And folks, listen, it happens to virtually everybody. You get chewed out by your boss in front of other people.
yeah.
And it becomes more and more likely the more senior you are in an organization. And in that case, it is tempting to defend yourself, but defending yourself is the wrong move. The right answer is to do nothing almost. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
um, okay. Nothing almost. I like it. So we're going to cover 4 parts today. We're going to talk about it happens. Getting chewed out in public,
Mhm.
it happens.
It does.
Don't defend yourself in the moment. If necessary, send a topical email afterwards. So that's our almost, right? And if your boss apologizes,
Mhm.
accept graciously. So
Exactly.
starting with, hey, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. Getting
You're not
chewed
the
out in the
only one.
workplace isn't fun. It's
Right.
never fun, but it
No.
happens. Now, I would say it probably happens less than it used to. About 20 years ago, it probably happened a lot more than it does now.
Mm-hmm.
And the workplace continues to get better in the sense that more managers and executives are aware of changing norms and the greater sensitivity they need to have to these types of behaviors. But it happens less, but it still happens. Mhm.
Yeah. We have a series of casts, right, called Is This Normal?
We do.
And this cast is not in the Is This Normal group.
It's
However,
not, but
and normal would be uh overstating it.
mhm.
Hopefully, though, it's reassuring for people to hear, hey, it does
You're
happen.
not alone. You're
You're
not
not alone.
alone.
This
It's pretty
happens.
standard, actually.
Yeah. The problem for a lot of managers, professionals, really professionals,
Mhm.
is that they believe that this kind of behavior is wrong.
Yeah.
Like in an ethical sense, they
Yeah.
believe, hey,
Yeah.
this
Like
is the wrong
wrong.
thing to do. It's not
Mhm.
appropriate. It's
Mhm. Or do you just stand up
unethical.
against it? Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. And so, right, it causes people to think, motivates people to think, hey, we have this moral right to
Yeah.
speak up, to defend ourselves and call out the person who's out of line
Mhm.
and shame, publicly make noise about it, which
Mhm.
interesting, right? It's an interesting approach to um that kind of thing, since that's what's happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And so
really
that's
interesting to do it back in return. So yeah,
yeah,
there's that.
it's almost like a, oh, you did this, now I get to do it. It's like almost a
Yeah.
permissive
Sure.
assumption,
Yeah.
on some
I don't think the people that are doing it
level.
feel that way. I really don't,
No,
but
they
it is
feel
true.
defensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Right, that's the thing.
Mhm.
It's a really it's a really human thing to
It is
feel
totally.
defensive and to want to
Mhm.
defend the position. And okay, we agree, y'all, that it's stupid and ineffective and
Uh-huh.
embarrassing when it happens, and it's wrong to chew people out, and we
Mhm.
agree. It's all those things. It's not a moral breach though.
Right.
It's
Yeah. It's not.
chewing someone out in public is not a moral breach. So
Mm-mm. It's not
we
cool, but it's not morally offensive. Yeah.
right, we support
Mhm.
you and
Mhm.
calm down.
Yeah. That's
That's
exactly it.
I
Mhm.
came out. I have a feeling that that line in particular and some of the content in this cast might upset some people. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we're gonna nip that in the bud right now.
Yeah.
We don't recommend that you get up on your moral high horse. It's far to climb. Okay.
Mhm.
You're not gonna get anywhere by getting on your moral high horse and calling out the bad behavior.
Mhm. Now, Folks, I can assume, and that's an assumption, so I could be wrong here. I can assume you've probably listened to more than one of our podcasts. This probably isn't your first one. I mean, there's 1,400 of them. There are many, so it's just a game of odds that I'm playing at this point. But as we've said before, you're not going to change your boss's behavior. And
Yeah.
that is especially true of a public butt chewing. You're not going to change their behavior. You're just not. Bosses who do this have briefly lost touch with effective manager behaviors. And they certainly won't respond in this moment where they're all fired up. They're not going to respond well to you lecturing them on their failings while they're currently already upset. It's not going to, you speaking up isn't going to change anything. It's frankly going to make it worse.
Absolutely. The phrase, of course, that comes to mind is don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
He's already fired up. He's already hopped up. And we're
Yeah.
not suggesting that we would only give this guidance, you know, to you about your boss, because remember
Yeah.
what we tell you as a manager to do when your director
Hmm.
gets defensive and potentially aggressive, when you're giving negative feedback, is to walk away. We
Right.
we we are suggesting this on both sides of your professional relationship
Yeah.
balance,
And
essentially, that
actually,
we
there's something that I
de-escalate.
can think. Yeah. De escalate. I mean, it's just standard. And going back to what you said earlier, Kate, I think some people could feel a little bit upset by what we're saying. No, beyond a shadow of a doubt. We are not suggesting you do what we're suggesting you do. That is, not say anything. We're not suggesting you do it for the benefit of your manager. That is
Mm,
not what this is about. This
right, we're
is
here for
not for
you.
their benefit. Exactly. This is for your benefit. We are making this recommendation, which I know doesn't feel good and we don't like it. And we really wanted to say something, but we're making the recommendation to protect you, is why we're doing it,
Yes,
not to
absolutely.
protect your manager. Just to be clear there. Mhm.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
we recommend that you walk away. It's honestly one of the purest forms of
Yeah.
de-escalation, and we
Hmm.
talk about it in our previous cast, the shot across the bow.
Hmm.
If you're interested in the shot across the bow, there's a cast for that.
Hmm.
What you'll probably find in these situations overall, where your boss has chewed you out in public,
Hmm.
is that it's rare that your boss is focusing specifically on what you or your team
Yeah.
or your organization did wrong. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of other things going on, and that's often very true when people
Hmm.
are emotional.
Yep.
There's a the Dune books, which I know not everyone is into or interested in. In the Dune books, they say fear is the mind killer. And
Mm. Hmm.
I use that phrase in my mind a lot when I'm emotional about something. And usually when I'm emotional about something, because I'm a pretty work task focused person, it's
Hmm.
outside of work. It's like there's
Okay. Yep.
other stuff going on. There's personal life stuff going
Hmm.
on. There's things that are very emotional happening. And it's not necessarily fear. However, negative emotion, I think, does cause people to pay less attention to
Yep.
their behaviors. You're focusing so much
Hmm.
on the emotion, you tend to think less about effective behaviors, about the volume of your voice, the words you're using,
Hmm.
where you are, your gestures, your eye contact, things like that. And then you behave badly because you're thinking about something else. There's other stuff going on.
Uh-huh.
And it's not going to help if somebody's in an emotional state and they're behaving badly for the other person involved to get into a heightened emotional state.
Yeah. That almost never de-escalates the
It's
situation.
not a
Almost never.
de-escalation.
Mm-mm.
We
Mm-mm.
totally want to remind you that
Yeah.
it is not in your best interest here. Again,
Yeah.
all this is in your best interest. It's not in
Yes.
your best interest to get caught up in the emotion of the event. We recommend that
Hmm.
you stay frosty,
Yep.
that you remind yourself it happens. It's not always about you. It's not always
Hmm.
about your team. It's not always about your org. There's other stuff going on.
Yeah. Don't take it personally.
Right. And then,
Oftentimes I find people take things personally when it ain't about you. Like it's about a
oh,
broader set of behaviors or a broader set of individuals, or
yeah.
it actually might not even be about you at all. It's actually
Yeah.
about literally someone different, but everyone in the room is like, is personalizing that moment
Oh, it's so true.
and thinking it's about me when
Mhm.
it's really like, this ain't about you, dude. It's really not.
When
So that's something to keep in mind as well.
yes, it is not always
Hmm.
about you. There's other
Yeah.
stuff going on. Being the bearing the brunt of this
Hmm.
type of situation. Honestly, there's so many factors involved that you are but a small piece of this
Yeah,
puzzle.
exactly. That's
So we do
exactly it.
recommend that you stay,
Hmm.
emotionally
Yep.
as much as you can, keep
Yep.
yourself from reaching a new emotional height around
Yeah.
this situation.
Hmm.
And to that end, also, in a continuation of that, we don't recommend for you to defend yourself. So don't defend yourself in the moment.
It's
When your
exactly it.
boss chews you out in
Hmm.
public, don't respond.
Right. Don't defend yourself. Do not, do not try and correct your boss if they're wrong on some of the details or in any way at all, for that matter. They're
Mm-mm.
not going to remember the details if they're angry. So pointing out these details that would clarify the situation are not beneficial. They're not in, I want to say, they're not in a listening phase, they're in a talking phase. So
Yeah.
saying stuff at them is not going to change what is happening. And remember, we all take liberties when we get angry about things. I mean, we all speak, I'm going to say less precisely
Hmm.
when in that that emotional state, right? And 100% accuracy is certainly not what is on your boss's mind at that point, to be
Yeah.
clear. I would say frankly, the more senior your boss is, the more they're dealing with things that you're not privy to, that you frankly have
Hmm.
absolutely no idea about. And we always assume that they've just gotten chewed out themselves or are dealing with something that they're not sharing with us. That's the place to
Hmm.
start. Remember, we have a podcast. If you've heard of it before, it's called Assume Positive Intent.
Yeah.
Assume that the reason for their anger or their upset nature right now is something completely different, because
Hmm.
it's entirely possible that your being chewed out has nothing to do with you at all. Again,
Further,
this ain't about you.
if you think about it that way, if you think about why are they mad? A, not necessarily about you.
Mm-hmm.
B, their behavior is about them. So you've got
Yeah,
two things going on that are not about you.
not about
What
you.
happened may not be about you. Y'all, we should note it could be you.
It could be
There's a
you. It could be you.
chance.
Yeah,
It
there
could
is.
be you. There's a
I
chance.
didn't want to
So
say it, but she
uh,
said it, so I agreed.
I already said the thing that's going to hurt people's
Yeah,
feelings today.
exactly.
So
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm sorry. I get
The
to be
bad guy
dark
today.
Mark today.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
like
get
it.
to be, I need a scary Kate nickname. I don't have one yet. It would be fun to have one.
It
Okay.
would be. I'll think of
So,
K names.
okay. It's possible that it's not about you.
Mhm.
And then their behavior isn't your fault. They have
Yeah,
control over
that's exactly
how
it.
they behave. So
Hmm.
remember, somebody else could have done something bad that caused their emotional state. Additionally, their chewing someone out in public
Hmm.
is not necessarily professional behavior. So you've
Yep.
got two things going on that aren't about you at all.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, is it going to help for you to add your angry fists to the equation?
Hmm.
No. Instead, we recommend sit quietly,
Hmm.
take notes about points that they're making that are specific to something you or your team did or didn't do. So,
Hmm.
actionable things that you need to change or that you need to take into consideration or
Yep.
communicate to your team. You really are likely to need these notes to be able to send the email we recommend you send in a moment. And additionally,
Hmm.
some of these things might need to be passed on to your team.
Yep.
That's
Hmm.
completely possible. We recommend a passive facial expression.
Hmm.
Passive facial expression and taking notes makes you the master of the moment
Yep.
and really does all you need to do to separate you from your boss's unprofessional behavior and rant,
Hmm.
etc.
Yeah. And folks, remembering back to your behaviors, this is really all you can control in this situation,
Hmm.
is what you do. So don't look like you're being punished and have a sad face in front of the group, hanging your head like, oh man, like this is just the worst. Look your boss in the eye as they rant. Don't hang your head. Don't try and look sad to garner sympathy from the other people in the room that are seeing what is happening here. It's only going to appear if you look sad in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
as though you agree with your boss's representation of the situation and you are in turn deserving of feeling bad and accepting responsibility for everything based on the way you receive this information. And in terms of your or your manager's behavior, remember, they're not thinking clearly. They are being over the top and it is unnecessary. You doing the same thing in reverse is not going to add value to the situation either. If your boss was thinking clearly, they wouldn't be ranting in this
Mm-hmm.
way in front of a group of people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
hold your head up. Hold your head up. Take the emotion out of what's happening. It's already emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be that person, that mainstay that takes the emotion out of the situation and is the professional in the room at that moment. Don't look at other people. Don't
Mm-mm.
roll your eyes to one of your
Oh my
friends that's kind of
gosh.
across the way,
No.
no, don't do it. That would be seen as, obviously, and it probably should be, judging your boss publicly. And if your
It's
boss
also
sees that, the attack will not stop. It will only get stronger. I assure you.
it's also really childish
Yeah, it
to
really
roll
is.
your
It really
eyes
is.
at somebody else.
Well, I can see you.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't make a facial expression. Don't like do that look like mess your face up like when they get something wrong. Like don't do it. I know I'm doing that because this is also going to be released on YouTube. And if you're
Yes.
currently listening to the audio version of this podcast and you want to see it in real life, go to YouTube. We are recording it. There is a video there. You can stop listening to the audio version right now. You can
And
go
go.
watch it on YouTube, faces included.
You could see the face that Sarah's trying to
Yeah,
describe
I
to
don't
us,
even know. I don't
which is
even.
like a
Yeah,
side,
it's like a
half
scrunch up,
side frowny scrunch.
like a questionable, that's not right at all. Yeah, like that.
This is a good one for video recording because
It really,
yeah,
really is.
our facial expressions are pretty
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
helpful.
check it out.
Helpful.
Check it out. We recommend.
We wouldn't you love to see us make faces at each other?
Hmm.
Um, so we recommend neutral facial
Hmm.
expression, look at
Yeah.
your boss, take
Hmm.
notes.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with getting mad,
Yeah.
getting chapped
Hmm. You
about
can totally
what
feel
you're
mad.
going through. You can completely feel mad. It's okay. It's justified. Let's not display it. Let's
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
show that. Let's keep our face passive. This is a
Hmm.
classic learning moment for you about the difference between what you think, which is always yours and always okay, and
Hmm.
how you feel, right? Always yours, always
Hmm.
okay, and what you do, how
That's
you
exactly it.
portray your outer self. Just
Hmm.
because on the inside you're having a moment
Yeah.
doesn't mean that your face has to
Needs to
reflect
tell
it.
everybody. That's
I it
exactly it.
once only once when I said no to feedback
Hmm.
was it because I've said no multiple times, right? When I've been
Hmm.
asked, said no 3 times in my whole career, but one time it was because sometimes my face doesn't want to be professional. It
Okay.
doesn't. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel my face has a it wants to show a feeling. It likes to
Hmm.
do that.
Yeah.
And I used to do so more. I've schooled myself much, much
Yeah.
better. And I said no one time to my boss, Jeff, actually, when he asked me if we
Mhm.
could talk about something, because I knew that at that moment, my face was not ready. I
Yeah.
needed some minutes to get my
Hmm.
face ready, like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take my emotions to a place where
Hmm.
I was they were lowered to a point where I could
Hmm. Yeah, sure.
think about my
Accept the
facial
feedback productively. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
think about my facial expressions in addition to
Yeah.
experiencing my emotions.
Yeah.
And in this case, we just recommend that you do that because sure, you're
Hmm.
mad, you're chapped,
Yeah.
you're embarrassed, you probably think you're
Hmm.
right. Sure,
Hmm.
you
You
are.
probably are right.
Yeah, we got you.
But
We're here, we support you, but
yeah.
the effective, politically savvy professional knows that even if you're right, sending that message is only going to prolong an embarrassing
Yeah.
moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
It
by the
sucks
way,
already. Don't make it longer.
we're when we say embarrassing, we're not talking about you. We're talking about your boss.
Hmm.
Nothing you're going to do in this moment is going to make your boss aware that he's embarrassing himself.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
let's write it out with class.
Yeah, exactly. Be classy. If someone mentions it afterward, and because this extends to
Mm.
beyond just the meeting
Oh,
itself,
yeah.
right? Because there will be an afterward. And if somebody mentions it afterward, we would encourage you to downplay the moment.
Hmm.
Simply say, it happens, never fun, but almost everyone is going to go through it. It's best to respond professionally, right?
Yeah,
And
say that. Say
yeah, just
those
say that.
words
Just
that
say that.
Tara's
Yeah,
articulating. Just say
right.
that.
Just say that. And if you like your boss, you could even defend them a little bit. You know
Hmm.
what? She's a great boss. If I have to go through this once a year, I can totally live with that. Just something that's innocuous.
Yeah.
Something that's just like, yeah,
Neutral.
it happens, you know? Roll with it and just let
Oh,
it go. Don't lean into them wanting to talk about what just happened because again, that will go beyond the meeting potentially and get back to your boss. And then it's a whole nother thing.
also bear in mind how adult it is to say, yeah, happens, dude.
Mhm.
You look
Oh,
so
yeah.
cool, so
So
above it,
cool.
so beyond. So if you're,
Mm.
it's because you might
Mhm.
be struggling with the
Yeah,
guidance in this cast. If
sure.
you're struggling,
It's a
okay,
hard one to do. Mhm.
yeah. And think up how above it you look.
Mhm.
Not just because this
Yep.
is professional guidance that will be supportive to you.
Mhm.
Okay, continuing that theme
Mhm.
of professional guidance,
Mhm.
it might be necessary to send a topical email afterwards. If there
Exactly.
were specific points that your boss made about performance or communication or your team, you can respond in an email.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
whatever you do, don't make any part of the email about the rant. This is in no way, shape, or form a
No.
chance to call out your boss in email.
No. It is
Not
absolutely not.
appropriate.
Mm-mm, not appropriate. And remember back to what Kate said earlier. You're taking notes. So
Hmm.
you have notes. Based on your notes, respond in an itemized way to the points your boss made related to you and or your organization. Don't say to your boss, you were wrong. Just
Mm-mm.
provide updates or comments regarding the specific points that they mentioned in their diatribe.
So simply
Mhm.
start showing that you're not going to address the unprofessionalism.
Mhm.
Okay. So at the beginning, when you send this email to your boss, that's what we're suggesting. You send an email to your boss about the points that they covered that you need to address. Start with responding to your comments from the meeting earlier today. You're right. We missed the deadline. Here's what we're going to do about that issue. Good opening kind of
Yeah. Mhm.
statements. Also, regarding the customer's comments on our work, we missed our concerns. We missed their concerns. Here's what we're doing and have done to address them. That kind of
Mhm.
thing. We're going
Yeah.
to, for
Statement of
each
fact.
point
Mhm.
that they covered, respond with the information they
Mhm.
would need, for example, to talk to a customer or to their
Yeah.
boss
Mhm.
or to share with their peers about how
Yep.
the team is responding to solving the problems that may have come up during the rant. So
Mhm.
imagine what
Yeah.
information they would need to communicate to somebody else. That's kind of the level that we're looking for here because that's
Mhm.
the professional thing to do. This
Yep.
may have come from a place of him being chewed out, of her being
Yeah.
approached by someone else about the
Mhm.
team's issues, the team's failures, the team's missteps. What would they need to communicate back to
Mhm.
their boss, their peer, so and so, who addressed them with or approached them with this and said, "Hey, these are the things I have," and
Mhm.
what would they need to communicate to somebody else? That might be a
Yeah.
good way to think about it. What did they need to be able to share with someone
Exactly.
else?
Exactly. I totally agree. That removes the emotion from it,
It can, yeah.
really, in the response,
Mhm,
right?
yeah,
Because remember, folks, you want to make sure your comments are not seen as defensive.
right.
So we would also encourage you maybe not to send it immediately. Draft it
Mm.
and set it aside.
Mhm.
Don't respond quickly. Your frustration with your boss's behavior could creep into your response. So set it aside for a few hours or overnight. I don't know, however long you think is appropriate. Come back to it later and read it. Change it. take a little bit of the emotion out,
Yeah.
possibly, right? And then send the email after you know it doesn't have, again, those the phrases that are suggestive of defensiveness or emotion. It's not about emotion. It's just about what to do. And please do not CC the other people who were in the
Mm,
meeting on this email. I don't think I need to say that, but I'm going to say it
mm,
anyway because this isn't your defense. It's not your ability to defend yourself via email, having been taken away from you the opportunity to defend yourself in the meeting by Kate and Sarah. It's not another opportunity to defend yourself. It's really not what it is. It's just a communication directly to your manager addressing the things that they brought up as their concerns. That's all it is.
and since we're highlighting who this goes to, this is a private email to your boss.
Yes.
So there's that. And just Sarah made the comment, draft it, set it aside. One of
Mhm.
the things that I sometimes do, specifically when I'm writing content, if I'm being honest, is I'll write it in the morning because there's less likelihood that I'll be interrupted in the
Mhm.
morning when I'm
Sure.
doing my emails. So I'll write things in the morning. I often have to put it in an email to send to the person who's going to post it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll write content in the morning. I draft it in Word and then I sit. And what I do usually is I wait until my lunch or end of the day email slot. So
Yeah.
I'll go into my email in the morning, I do the stuff, and then I will take some time to write content. I usually do that while playing specific music, things like that. I've got it all
Mhm.
ready. And you could do a similar thing in the morning. You could draft the email or whatever
Mhm.
time slot it is, and then you could wait until your next email time slot of the day.
Yeah.
And I find that it's been in the back of my mind. It's been being recomposed. It's been
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
solidified and streamlined. And so it might just be that you just need to wait till your next email time
Yeah.
slot to hit send. It's a
Mhm.
really nice way to do it. And again, because your
Yeah.
brain is taking some time. Also, my experience with this is defensiveness fades a bit with time.
Yeah.
So actually sending this really quickly might not be your best approach. You
Yeah.
might wait a couple of hours or 24 such that frankly your boss's emotional state adjusts. This
Yeah.
email might be better received tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
frankly. So,
Well, and it might be
I
better sent tomorrow morning. I mean, to your
exactly.
point, I think, Kate, like you'll come back to it in a few hours. You're like, you know what? No, I'm not
Ah,
going to send that.
don't
I
need
mean,
it.
it is, I don't need it. Non-issue. Don't need it.
Yeah.
So you might just end up trashing it.
Yeah.
And that's
Emotional
okay too.
height, the heightened emotional response
Mhm.
here will fade.
Yeah, it will.
You're going to deal with 25 other things today, especially if you're an
Mhm.
executive. You're going to deal with 55 other things today, in which case, by the time you come back to this email, you may feel very differently about what
Yeah,
happened.
that's exactly it. And who knows what could have happened by then? Who knows? For
Your boss
example,
could apologize.
your boss could have apologizes. And if they apologize, we would suggest you accept it graciously. Now,
Yes, you should always accept apologies gracefully.
exactly. Now, for fear of bursting your bubble or getting your hopes up in some way, no. It's rare. It's rare that this is going to happen. And I apologize in advance for that. But if you're lucky, your boss will apologize. Keep in mind that this apology may not take the most perfect of forms from
Mhm.
our previous guidance on how to deliver an effective apology. For the record, it would sound something like, I apologize for my behavior the other day. I was out of line and I regret how I treated you. That's how we would recommend the apology come across.
Mhm.
That's probably not what you're going to get. Your boss isn't going to say, I apologize for my behavior the other day. I was out of line and I regret how I treated you. What you're going to get is something more like, about yesterday, I was angry. I didn't mean to focus solely on you. That's probably what you're going to get. And it's weak sauce. And we all
That's,
know that. But it's what you're going to get.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
regardless of the form of your boss's effort to apologize,
Yeah.
if you sense anything that feels close to an apology, consider it an apology and respond as such,
Hmm.
which might sound like, thanks, boss, and no worries. There were things I could have done better. Good lesson for me. Short, simple, acknowledging their
Yep.
effort. Don't judge them on a poor effort, just accept it and then put it behind you.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's
Hmm.
not just portray ourselves as professionals, also let's act like professionals.
Hmm. Exactly. And going back to previous, if they actually say something that sounds apologetic, like before you send your note, you don't use your note as a reason, or sorry, you don't use the apology as a reason not to send your note. We still recommend you would send that unemotional note
Mm-hmm.
so that they know. Again, to Kate's point earlier, they may require that information to communicate
Yes.
with other people, with customers, other parties within the organization. So you could still send that note. Don't just not send it now that you got your apology,
Mhm.
because again, the purpose of the note wasn't to defend yourself. The purpose of the note was to give them valuable information. Not
Yeah.
sending the note because you got your apology suggests that the purpose of the note was to defend yourself, which it wasn't. So the note is still necessary.
It
Mhm.
could be. It
Yeah, it could
absolutely
be.
could
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Mhm.
If you're experiencing this, we
Mhm.
feel for you. Reminder, we do
Yeah,
feel for you.
we do.
And we know what you can do to make this something that is professional in the end.
Mhm.
It could
Yeah.
still come out positively. You're going to get chewed out. It happens. It's
Yeah.
not your fault, even if you screwed up.
Mhm.
Focus on the work. Forgive your boss as you would have done unto yourself and move on.
Mhm.
And make a note to not make that same mistake yourself.
Exactly. Built a file. All righty. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day, y'all.